All right. Hello, everybody. I hope you all are doing well. This is DFS Army's tournament strategy show where we are going to go game by game, strategize, talk through guys we like. Also, we'll talk through some guys that we don't like as much. Just make sure that we're all good to go by the time we get, but before we get to lock. Anyway, Brandon, glad you're here. It's been a little bit. How are you feeling, man?
Feeling I'm okay. Glad to be back. Feel like it's been a while. I know I wasn't on at all last week, so definitely
Yeah,
glad to be back on with you.
yeah.
As far as how I'm feeling about the slate, pretty huge slate with a lot of not so great spots. So will be interesting for sure.
Yeah, I feel like it's been a while since we've had a slate this big. And we were talking about before the show started off. Thankfully, they took off that Sixers Portland game because all of the Sixers that are important are questionable. So that would have made this slate even uglier. But
Yeah.
glad we're at it. Michael Ortiz, good to see you. Tattoo, glad you're here. Daniel, hope you're doing all right, man. Let's go ahead and jump into these games. Not enough, too many games, not enough time to dilly dag. First off, we have the Knicks going up against the Hornets. For the Knicks, when it comes to injury news, most important thing, Julius Randle's going to be out for a good chunk of time. He's really the most recent news that's really going to impact things. I know, as you can tell, I have a lot of likes on the Knicks already. Do you like this team as much as I like them?
Yeah, it's hard not to. Not only is Randall out for a few weeks with that dislocated shoulder, but it's also against the Hornets. So it's really hard not to like this team tonight. Um, I start with Quentin Grimes. He's not the prettiest play, but he's probably the best value play we have at the moment. 3,700 with no Randall. Minutes should be there. And he's actually been pretty decent as of late, too. So don't mind eating that chalk. Josh Hart is another one that's not too pretty to play, but again, no Randall. He's about to probably see close to 40 minutes, so definitely don't mind getting to him. Brunson, love him tonight. He is priced up, so he's not like that all-in play with Randall being out. But if his ownership stays right where it is, he's going to be somebody I don't mind getting double the field at like 20-25%. And then OG, I was kind of going back and forth. He's kind of been the question mark on his team. I wish he was a bit cheaper, but I'm hoping with Randall out of the situation now, he can kind of step up a bit more. So definitely at 2% ownership. He'll be interesting, like a low on sneaky play. And then DiVincenzo, I don't have a strong opinion on him, but I'm okay if he shows up just because of the matchup. And again, Randall's out. So yeah, overall, I like the main pieces on this team.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I know someone on this Knicks team is going to fail dramatically because they just always do. There's no way all these guys can get there for us, but a lot of them are in spots where I want to make sure I'm at least around field weight or have a little bit of ownership and leverage on them. Jalen Brunson's one of those guys I want to make a priority. I want to make sure I'm at least around projected ownership, which is around 10 to 11% currently. Isaiah is someone that I want a little bit of exposure to. He's not seeing a lot of ownership right now, but he actually sees the highest increase in usage when Randall's out. So I think that makes a lot of sense. Randall takes some of the rebounds away. He's also very involved offensively. Wouldn't shock me if we see Isaiah a little bit more involved offensively today. And I expect him to just be more involved with rebounds and things of that sort too. OG, his biggest issue is that he is a very low usage player, typically around 17%. But with Randall out, he does see around like a 3% increase in usage. And so I'm hoping and extremely in a super soft matchup against the Hornets, we can get a better version of OG today. He also plays a shit ton of minutes. And so he's someone I want to have a good amount of exposure to. Uh, DiVincenzo, Hart, Grimes, they're all guys who see more stability in their minutes. Usage rates are solid. These guys can be streaky, don't have as much trust in them, but I do expect at least one or two of these guys to be in the winning lineup tonight. So I'll have a decent amount of exposure here. If I had to rank them, it would be like Hart, Grimes, and then Dante, but I'll have a good amount of exposure to everyone here. Did you give any extra thought to guys like Precious or maybe even McBride, Brandon?
McBride, I would be okay if he showed up a little bit just because of the lack of value. Precious is too expensive for me, especially with Hart back in the picture. I'm not even really on Hart tonight, to be honest. I just don't like that price tag, and I like other center spots better. So it's mainly Brunson, Hart, and Grimes. I'd say, my favorite plays on this team, and okay with a little Dante. And like I said, I'm willing to get leverage on OG with his ownership being so low.
Sweet. Dave, appreciate you. If you all could hit the like, share, and subscribe button, it really does help the channel grow a lot. And it also does just help make sure that everyone's aware that people are actually listening and paying attention. If you're interested in the pre-lock show, which is something that we do at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, that's where it's a little bit less strategy, more execution. We show exactly what we're doing in the domination station in our optimizer on that show. That's for VIP members only. Link is in the description if you're interested in that. If you want a discount to be able to see that show, feel free to use promo code BDUB, BDUBB, BB for a 10% discount there. So I saw everyone's comments in the chat. I think we touched on a lot of that already. Thomas, Josh, good to see y'all here. Let's move on. We have the Hornets on the other side of this game, but things are a little complicated. LaMelo Ball is questionable. He's really the biggest piece of news I care the most about. With LaMelo being questionable, it just makes me not feel extremely secure in this game. But just in general, are you excited to play any Hornets right now?
Nah, this is one of the teams that's is an easy fade. If LaMelo's in, if he's out, I'll be a little more willing to play Bridges and Miller, maybe even Washington.
Mm-hmm.
But as of now, they're pretty easy fade.
Yeah, I'm interested in seeing how Randall being gone will impact the Knicks defensively, but I'm not overly concerned about that today with the Hornets.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. Next up, we have a game with a pretty low total. Clippers going up against the Cavs. Starting off with the Clippers, they are looking pretty healthy outside of Zubac, who's been out for a while. Is anyone standing out for you, Brandon?
Not really. I didn't really like the spot for the Clippers. I think Harden and Kawhi are always worth mentioning, and I think decent low on GPP plays, but this team isn't really standing out to me tonight.
Yeah, Cavs are a really good defense. Not a team I like to pick on, and they could be getting better today with Mobley. So, yeah, no one I'm looking to force exposure to tonight. Now, the Cavs, I think we're always a little bit more interested in. It looks like Evan Mobley is on track to play, so that makes me a little bit less interested in general in guys like Jared Allen that we've been playing for a while. But talk to me about Donovan Mitchell.
So no surprise, I definitely I'm going to be playing some Mitchell. He's still at a good price, and his ownership is what's drawing me in at 3%. So he's going to be a leverage play tonight for sure. I think this is a spot he can still do well in. I know Clippers have been better overall, but we know the upside Mitchell has, and his usage on his team is just insane, especially since Garland has been out. And even though Mobley's coming back, I don't mind getting to some Jared Allen still. I like that price quite a bit. And Clippers are pretty weak down low. And I would imagine Mobley's going to be on some type of minutes restriction. So I think Allen is still viable in this spot. So just those two guys are the only ones I'm looking at here.
Yeah, no, it's funny. Before this show, and as I was doing research earlier, I saw Donovan Mitchell on the slate. I was like, I know he's going to be chalky. I can finally fade it. We know the Clippers have been pretty solid defensively this season against guards. And then he's low owned. And we know the upside he has. And I don't care that much about the matchup in NBA. So I am definitely going to play Donovan Mitchell here. Jared Allen, with him being a little bit more chalky, I'm not going to make him a priority. But if he shows up, which it looks like he will, he's projecting pretty well, totally fine with that. Evan Mobley, not looking to take a shot on him yet, but I will want to soon. Ultimately, Mitchell's really the only guy I'm forcing in here. Next up, we have an interesting game. Pelicans going up against the Celtics. Nice total at 235. Spread is a little wide at 8.5 points. Starting off on the Pelican side of things, let's see if we have any super interesting news. Not really anything worth talking about. Are you taking any stands here?
Yeah, this is another team that's not really standing out, and they've been god awful lately, the last few games. So, especially with everybody healthy, it's hard to make anybody a priority, especially on a slate this big. Um, I will say any of the three main guys out of Ingram, Williamson, and CJ, they're always worth mentioning for GPP plays. But against the Celtics, it's hard to attack that. And I guess Nance is a okay value play. He's been getting some good minutes and starting the second half over Joe Val. So I don't mind if he shows up a little bit, but definitely not forcing in anyone here, I don't think.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that too. No one I'm forcing in. Would love if Larry Nance was power forward eligible, but he's not. It is what it is. But just like you said, I think Zion, CJ, Brandon Ingram are all viable dart throws, but they're not players I'm looking to make a priority. Large slate can't play everybody. It just is what it is. And then Joe Val, he plays a decent amount of minutes too, but his minutes are everywhere. So again, shots are fine, but not a team I'm looking to build around tonight. Next up, we have the Celtics. Kristaps Porzingis is listed as questionable. Al Horford is questionable. What are you doing here, Brandon?
Yeah, this team will be super interesting with the questionable that they have. Porzingis questionable. I think Horford questionable, and Cornette is doubtful. So if all these guys are out, there might be some value there at the center position. So we'll definitely have to keep an eye out for that situation. But main guy I'm targeting here is Tatum. He hasn't been that great, and we haven't seen the upside we know he has that much this season. But 9,200, especially if Porzingis is out, I think this is a spot where he can be sneaky, and I think this is going to be another leverage play for me. And like I mentioned, the Pelicans have been pretty bad, so he's the one guy I want to target here.
Yeah, I agree. I am looking at Tatum. I also think, of course, Jaylen Brown is also viable at his price tag at 7,800. The game total, game environment is solid. So there's a few things keep me interested. I don't know how crazy I want to go here, just because the Pelicans are a solid team defensively, but the low ownership is what's keeping me interested in looking at these guys as viable. So we will see. All right. So I think it's safe to move on. No one else really worth mentioning. I think you're right. We could see some interesting center options pop up if all three of these guys end up getting ruled out, but more of a wait and see approach for me, really, on what happens with Porzingis and Horford. All right. Next up, we have the Utah Jazz going up against the Nets. For the Jazz, they're pretty healthy. So not really anything to mention on that side of things. Just in general, though, is there anyone who's standing out for you?
Yeah, it's another team that probably won't be too much of a priority, and more of a team where if they're showing up in the mix a little bit, I'm okay with it. Like Kelly O, especially since you can play him at power forward as well at 4K. Um, with the lack of value, he can be an option. Sexton, he's a little interesting just because he's been super solid this season. So don't mind getting to a little bit of him, and definitely never mind getting to Markkanen either. 8,200 is still a decent price for the upside he has. But yeah, overall, no one I would be willing to force him, I don't think.
Yeah, it's a good game environment. Again, still another solid total, 235.5. Closer spread than that Pelican Celtics game. Also, two teams that aren't super strong defensively. So I'm much more comfortable having more of these guys show up a little bit naturally. Even like Sexton, you mentioned Markkanen, Collins, Kelly O, these type of plays are fine, but no one that I'm like, I have to have. So I expect to have exposure to the Jazz today, but there's no one that I'm looking to force in here. For the Nets, we have Ben Simmons listed as available today, so that'll be interesting. Cameron Johnson was not on the injury report. DFS is out. Nothing really too new or crazy here. Who are you looking at? It looks like we have quite a few high projections in regards to ownership, so pretty chalky team.
Yeah, I like this team quite a bit. Even though Utah's kind of been winning a lot of games lately, they still give up a lot of points fantasy-wise. So I definitely love this side of the ball. So Claxton is standing out big time. Love his price, and he's been pretty consistent so far. Bridges, I don't mind getting to him. He always scares me, especially in spots like this where you expect him to smash and he lets us down and only smashes in spots where you don't go for him. So he kind of concerns me a little bit, but I'm willing to play him. Cam Johnson, I love the price on him. You can play him as small forward and power forward. So he's looking good. And then Cam Thomas is another one that kind of concerns me just because how streaky he is. He has looked good the last couple games, and 6K isn't bad for what he can do. But along with Bridges, he just kind of concerns me with how streaky he is. So those are kind of the main four guys I'm looking at here.
Yeah, for me, we know this Utah Jazz team is not good from a defensive perspective. What concerns me is that the Nets aren't really great either. They're all pretty streaky, but they're cheap, like you said, and they're extremely viable. And I plan on having a crap ton of ownership to all of them. Already in my early runs, the Domination Station likes the Nets a lot today. And so I'm not going to have to force in these guys. That's just not going to be something I have to worry about. The real question for me is going to be how much exposure do I actually want to these individuals? And I do feel like I'm probably going to cap them, but I have to figure out where I want to go in those other spots first. So I will be over the field on everyone, but how over the field is the only question. Does Ben Simmons returning give you any pause on anyone? Does it make you a little bit more nervous about any of these spots?
Not really, because I don't think he's going to play that many minutes. I think they just take away minutes for some of these other guys, these secondary guys. So that doesn't concern me too much for their main guys.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Sweet. All right, next up we have a team that I've been struggling with all season long. The Suns going up against the Miami Heat. For the Suns, we have Yusuf Nurkic listed as TBD, so we'll have to wait and see if he actually ends up playing or not. And then we have Bol listed as TBD. Damian Lee's been out for a little bit now. Going up against a Miami Heat team with a pretty close spread. Who are you looking at? I feel like you're definitely taking a shot here. It's just, who's it going to be for you?
You'll actually be surprised. Currently, I'm not taking any shots here. It's just a huge slate, and if it was a smaller slate, I'd be more willing to. But like you say, you can't play everybody, so this is just kind of a team where I've kind of decided I'm probably not going to force in. So I think the way Booker has been playing, especially at almost no ownership, he's worth mentioning as a GPP play. And KD, his upside is there too, but it just hasn't been there, especially with the way Booker has been performing. And same thing with Bill. It's a decent price tag on him, but the way Booker's kind of been taking over lately is hard to trust anyone here.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Viable, but I'm not forcing it. I'll be surprised if by the time we get to the pre-lock show, though, you still don't have a min on them. We'll see.
Yeah, things could change, so we'll see.
Yeah, things change all the time. It's still really early in the day for NBA DFS, and so that's why we even have the pre-lock show, just because so much changes. All right, for the Heat, they're pretty healthy at this point. We do have Bam, who's looking pretty cheap at 8,100, but do you have a plan as of right now for playing any of these guys?
Yeah, it's only if Nurk is out. If he's out, I'm definitely gonna get to Bam. I love his price, and if Nurk is out, I think it's just a spot where he can dominate. So he's somebody I keep an eye on. And I was considering Tyler Hero at his price. I like that he's getting a bit cheaper. But like I mentioned, it's a huge slate, so I'm kind of being selective with spots I'm going for. And then same with Butler. If it was a smaller slate, I'd be willing to target him as well. But overall, this team isn't really standing out.
Yep. I had a feeling you're going to be thinking about Bam that way, and I'm right there with you. If Nurkic is ruled out, I am super excited to play Bam tonight. But if he plays, I'm not really trying to go there. I think you can take a shot on Hero. I think he's very viable at this price tag for upside. But again, large slate, like you said, can't play everyone, so I'm not trying to go crazy there. And then Jimmy Butler as well. He's shown that 50-point upside is still there, even with Terry Rozier still being here, and a tough matchup against the Knicks last time out, but still don't like picking on the Suns too much here, so as of right now, I'm not planning on going there. Next up, we have the Kings going up against the Grizzlies. This is another team I thought I was going to be more excited to play, but there's not really anything pointing me towards them, which is giving me a little bit of pause, but the Kings are pretty healthy. I know Sasha's questionable, but that doesn't impact too much for me. Are you taking a shot on Sabonis or Fox?
Most likely not. I won't be forcing them in, surprisingly, because like you said, when I saw this game, I thought it was for sure going to be a spot where I wanted to get to. But yeah, overall, just another team I'm not too excited about. I will say, which I never thought I'd be saying this, but the one guy who I'd be willing to put him in on to at least match the field is Harrison Barnes, which is just mind-blowing. But it's really hard to ignore how he's been playing. I think it's like 3 or 4 games in a row now that he's been really, really good. So at 4,800, the way he's playing, he's somebody I want to have exposure to. But everyone else, if they show up in the mix, I'll be okay with. But not going to go out of my way to force them.
Yeah, it's starting to feel like when someone shows you who they are, believe them. And I feel like Harrison's showing us who he is at this point. He's playing more consistent minutes. On occasion, this has happened this season where they'll start giving him pretty consistently more than 30-plus minutes. But I feel like with him playing as consistently as he has been, hopefully this role is pretty solidified. His 7% ownership isn't that bad for the upside he has. If he was like a 20-30% player from an ownership side of things, I'd be like, all right, we need to consider a fade here. This is looking a little sketchy. But 7%, I'm right there with you, man. He is showing up a good bit for me naturally, so I don't have to force it in as of right now. But if there's a point where he's not showing up for me anymore and we don't have better value that shows up, Harrison Barnes is one of those guys I'm willing to put him in on, even willing to have a little bit of leverage on too. So we'll see. I'm also okay with Keegan Murray showing up in a few lines, even Malik Monk, but really hard for me to get to the pay-up options tonight. Low game total is my main reason for it.
Yep.
For the Grizzlies going up against the Kings, we know these guys have been battling through injuries all season long. Luke Kennard is still listed as TBD, so that is pretty important information for this team. But what's your plan here?
Jaren Jackson is looking decent in the spot, 8,100. So I don't mind getting to some of him. If Kennard plays, I wish he was a bit cheaper, but he's been pretty solid with all these guys being out so far this season. So don't mind some of him. And if Aldama shows up a little bit too, I'd be fine with that. So there's a kind of the 3 main guys I'd be willing to get to here.
Yeah, not overly passionate about it, but whoever shows up, it's fine. Don't want any of these guys to be anywhere close to being core plays, but comfortable with their price tags. They're not bad plays by any means. All right. Next up, we have a game that's actually exciting, at least for me, but these are 2 gross teams. The Washington Wizards going up against the San Antonio Spurs. Personally, I know a lot of people don't like it, but I love it when these 2 bad teams go up against each other because we get to talk about names that we usually don't. I don't know if you agree with me, but I like the Wizards a good bit today.
Oh yeah.
No real injury news. Isaiah Livers is out, but that doesn't matter to me. Who are you playing here?
So Kuzma is always the first one that comes to my mind when this team is in spots like this. So he will probably be a leverage play for me tonight. Tyus Jones, I love him tonight as well. He's been really solid this season, and I think 6,300 is a good price for what he's been doing. Avdia, he's not going to be a priority for me, and I don't think I'm going to force him in. But he's another one that I'd be okay with if he showed up a little bit. Same with Gafford. I don't think I can make him a priority. I've been going back and forth on Poole, but I'm probably not going to play him. So
I thought
uh,
you were going to say I probably will, but no.
no. I'd rather go to Tyus over him. So I get it with the matchup and only 5,800, but I don't know if I can do it.
Yeah, this might be the first time we've disagreed in a while. For me, I do like Kuzma. I think Kuzma is someone I want to at least be around field weight exposure on, which is probably 9 to 10%. Would love to have more Kuzma if possible. Deni Avdia is someone that I would like to see show up a little bit more naturally. I might consider putting a min on him just because I know that upside is there, but 6,100 seems like a very appropriate price tag. I don't know if there's too much upside left there. But again, this is the highest game total on the slate, and my general philosophy is I'm looking for reasons to play guys here, not reasons not to. So that's why I'm really looking deeper at all of these guys' options. Daniel Gafford has been in really good form lately. He has a fantastic matchup against the Spurs. Can guarantee I'll be significantly over the field on him. And then Jordan Poole. We know Jordan Poole is god awful. He's a really bad basketball player, but he still has a really good usage rate, and he typically comes through for us in these really good matchups. And so I'll be going right back to him here, and I'll be significantly over the field on Poole tonight as well. So a team that I like a lot, and that's about it for me. Next up, we have another team that's looking like they're going to be pretty chalky on this slate, one player in particular. We have the Spurs going up against the Wizards. Spurs, we have Zach Collins. Zach Collins listed as questionable. That does impact a few things here, but not too much. Outside of that, this team's pretty healthy. Who do you like?
So I'll start with the obvious Victor Wembanyama. I think he's the best play on the slate, and I honestly might just lock him. Like, that's how strong I feel about him, because 8,900 in this matchup is just insane. So I wouldn't overthink him too much tonight. Like, I know some people like to fade chalky studs like him, but I wouldn't overthink this spot too much. So I'll be, like I said, I'll probably have 100% of him. I like Vassell quite a bit, and Trey Jones and Sohan. So those are, I guess you can throw Keldon in there too, especially at his ownership. So I'm probably going to make sure I have exposure to all 5 of those guys.
Yep, right there with you. And the crazy thing with Victor, we were talking about it a little bit earlier too. On FanDuel, he's a little bit more expensive. He's like 10K plus or something like that. If Victor was priced like an actual stud, it would actually be a decision for me if we're going to play him or not. Well, with him being 8,900, and we still haven't really seen him play 30 plus minutes, and he's averaging 50 points. We've been playing Victor all year, just going to keep doing it. And like you said, Brandon, right now he's showing up in 99% of my lines. I'm probably totally fine with him showing up in 99%. Vassell's the other guy I'm looking to make a priority on this slate. We know the Wizards are not a good defensive team. That's part of why this game total is so high. I like having exposure to him. And then Keldon Johnson, Trey Jones, Sohan, those type of players, I'm okay with them showing up. I want to be at least around field weight, but I'm not going to go as heavy on them as I am Victor and Vassell. So still priorities for me. They need to be there, but there's different tiers for me on this slate.
Yep. Yeah, those guys I'm probably going to have like a 10% min on.
Agreed. All right, so next up we have the Timberwolves going up against the Oklahoma City Thunder. For the Timberwolves tonight, they do have some injury news. Mike Conley is listed as questionable. We know how much that can impact things, so we'll keep a close eye out for that. But that's really the only piece of news that we're looking at here. Who are you looking at?
Anthony Edwards was a leverage play I was considering. We were talking before the show. It's looking like, at least as of now, I'm going to be more balanced tonight, and he would fit into that perfectly at 8,500, and his upside is great. So he's going to be a potential leverage play for me tonight. Outside of him, if Conley plays, he's going to be an okay option I'd be willing to get to, just because the value at guard really isn't there as of now. So 5,300 in this matchup, I don't mind getting to some of him, but nothing like a core player, anything like that. And then don't really have any strong opinions on Gobert and Cat. If they were to show up a little bit around Phil Wade, I'd be okay with, but not spots I want to go over on.
Yeah, like you, I'm fine with Conley, but there's a line. I don't really want more than 30% of him. He's just a viable, relatively cheap player on this slate who plays a decent amount of minutes, but we'll see if he actually plays. Rudy Gobert is frustrating because he's the only center who struggles against OKC. Most bigs can crush OKC. Chet has been awful defensively for the most part when it comes to daily fantasy sports. Besides Rudy Gobert, he has his floor performances here. So fantastic spot, but he just hasn't been performing here. I might take a shot on him again, but it's tough for me to even consider it. I like the thought process behind Anthony Edwards. I might end up following you on that, Brandon, but as of right now, I don't really have anything pushing me in that direction, so hard for me to get overly excited about it, but I do understand it. For the Thunder, they're pretty healthy. Are any of these guys standing out for you?
Not really. Another team might fade altogether. Only one I'm really considering is SGA, of course, just because we know what he can do, and he's been pretty solid this year. So I'd be okay with like a 5% min on him. But outside of that, just overall another team that's a pretty easy fade for me.
Yep, I'm right there with you. I think if Mike Conley doesn't play tonight, then I'll be more excited to play SGA ever so slightly. Not a ton. It's just I'll be a little bit more willing to do like a 5-10% min on him, something like that. Next up, we have a Lakers team going up against the Rockets. Of course, Anthony Davis and LeBron James are questionable. Now that that's aside, who do you like here or don't like?
Really, the only guy I was considering forcing in is D'Lo. I've been on the D'Lo train since it started, so he's been really, really good. So he's probably one guy I'm going to force some exposure to. We both usually like getting to AD, but it's hard to go there when you got Wemby at 8,900, especially with his lingering injury he has going on. Probably not a spot I want to get to, and I think same thing with LeBron. Even though he looks super good last game, he's probably not going to be somebody I'll force in either. But they're both worth mentioning for GPP plays.
Yeah, I don't love LeBron, but I think you're right. He's worth mentioning. AD, I continue to go back and forth on. I wish he was 5% owned instead of 7. It's a small difference, but it would make me feel a lot better about a 10% min. But TBD there. And then D'Lo's interesting, but not a lot for me to get overly excited about. I'll probably end up taking a shot on AD, but again, that's more of a wait and see approach for me at this point in time. For the Rockets, when we look at their injury news, Jabari Smith was not on the injury report, so hopefully he'll actually play. So nothing else to really talk about there. Who are you looking at here?
Really, only 3 guys I'd be willing to take a shot on. Jalen Green stands out just because he's been pretty solid lately, and 6,200 it's a good price. And like I mentioned, we don't really have value at guard, so he kind of fits that balance build if that's the way you want to go. And the Lakers haven't been good at all defensively against guards, so don't mind getting there. Şengün, I never mind getting to. I think 8,700 is still a good price for him, and I wouldn't mind putting like a 10% min on him. And then Fred VanVleet, 7,500 is a great price for the upside he has. And like I mentioned, Lakers haven't been that good against guards, so he'd be somebody I'm willing to put like a 5 or 10% min on.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised that the spread is so close. 1 point spread here. It makes me just a little bit nervous about this game just in general, to be honest. But like you mentioned, pretty solid spot for the Rockets. Şengün looking good is once again just the debate between Victor Wembanyama's price tag and Alperen's, but he's a really solid pivot option, or you can even play both together. So much lower ownership there, but I plan on at least being around field weight. I like Fred VanVleet tonight. I like Jalen Green. Those are the three guys I want to make sure show up for me, and none of them outside of Green are extremely chalky. So hopefully our guy Fred VanVleet can come through for us at relatively low ownership. Next up, we have the Magic going up against the Mavericks. For the Mavericks or for the Magic, really only questionable tag here is Markelle Fultz. Outside of that, everyone's looking pretty healthy. Anyone standing out for you here?
No, not really. It's another team that was pretty easy for me to skip by, not even think about.
Yeah, hard for me to argue with you on that one. I mean, Paolo and Franz are always worth mentioning, but hard to get overly excited about this spot for me too.
Only guy I was going to mention, if I were to play anybody from this team, it would probably be Paolo.
Yeah. And then for the Mavericks, of course, they have questionable news. So Kleba looks like he's probable. Derek Jones, questionable. Dante Exum, questionable. Dwight Powell, questionable. All I'm really hearing here is that I don't have to think about Grant Williams anymore, which is nice. But outside of that, are you looking at Luka at 14% ownership?
I would be okay playing them, but like I mentioned, I'm leaning more towards the balanced approach. So I don't think Luka is really going to be a priority for me tonight. I definitely don't hate to play if you get to him, but I'm just going with a different strategy tonight. And then only way I would play anyone else is if we get Exum and Jones out. I'd be willing to get some exposure to Josh Green and Grant Williams, and I think they would be decent pivots off of some of the cheaper value from New York. So
Yeah,
that's kind of only way I would play those guys.
yeah, no, I agree. I think Luka's really the only guy that I'll be looking at, but I'm also not going to force him in, so I'm probably going to end up being under the field on him. Dixon said, when is the All-Star break? I'm not touching the National Blowout Association until after the break when teams have something to play for. Everyone doing whatever the hell they want today. Is it sad? Yeah, I think All-Star break is in what, 2-3
It
weeks?
should be
Probably.
coming up soon. It's usually like I think the second week of February, so
Yeah.
very soon.
Yeah, for me, I just keep on rolling along. I don't get too much into the weeds or specifics or get too caught up into it. Sometimes we have takedowns, sometimes we don't. Just gotta keep the process going.
Yep.
Next up, we have the last game on the slate: Bucks against the Nuggets. This is a game I do like a bit more than I thought I was going to. For the Bucks, pretty healthy today, so nothing too concerning. Or do you have anyone that's standing out for you?
Not really standing out, but looks like we were thinking the same on Middleton. He's definitely one guy I want to have some exposure to in this game. I don't hate playing Giannis, but again, I'm looking a bit more balanced. Like a lot of these priced up guys are just hard to get to when you got Wemby at 8,900. So that's what's kind of hard, making it hard for me to want to play Giannis, but definitely don't hate it at all.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't mind some shots on Lopez either, because Denver has not been that great against centers. So he's somebody I would keep in mind, but don't think I can get to Lillard or anyone else here.
Yeah, right there with you. Middleton was someone that stood out for me just as I was doing research throughout the day. Matchup's not awful. Also, just a good game environment. And I feel like he's priced where he still has a little bit of upside left there, too. So he made a lot of things work out. Giannis, like you mentioned, super viable, but just hard to get to him at his price tag. And I don't care enough about playing Giannis in this spot where I'm looking to force him in, at least as of yet. I think Brook Lopez is interesting. I need to look a little bit closer at that because that does make sense. That's super
Yeah,
low
he might
ownership.
be a leverage play.
Yeah, like there's a few like viable low owned pieces that I like on this slate. And then next up we have for the Nuggets going up against the Bucks. They're looking pretty healthy these days. Nothing really worth talking about here. Are you looking at? Do you like this team a little bit more than the Bucks?
Yeah, for sure. If there were anybody out of all the studs I would want to play, it would probably be Jokic. Uh, I don't like that he's 10% owned and wish it was a bit lower because I'd be willing to get some leverage on him, but I'd be okay with like matching the field at 10%.
Yeah. It's
Uh,
all good, Dixon. No worries, man. I know for me, like breaks are fine. Like breaks are good. Like if you need to take a break sometimes, like you can take a little break and then come back and feeling super good about things. And I take breaks all the time. Like I don't play NBA DFS on Sundays pretty much ever, and then sometimes on Saturdays. So I feel you. No worries, man. Did I interrupt you, Brandon? Were there other people you like to?
yeah, I love Jamal Murray. He's probably my favorite play on this team and will be a leverage play for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we know the Bucks are not great defensively, especially against the guards. This is a spot where I think he can smash. MPJ and Gordon, it's always a coin flip trying to decide which one between them is going to have a great game. So those are both guys I wouldn't mind throwing like a 5 or 10% min on. And then I guess you can mention Peyton Watson as a decent value play. He's a bit chalky at 15%, which I don't like, but he has put a few solid games together. So don't hate getting to him either.
Yep. No, I don't disagree. For me, I like Jamal Murray, just like you mentioned. Definitely going to be over the field on him. Michael Porter Jr. is the guy I chose between Aaron Gordon. For me, it was between MPJ, Aaron Gordon. I like to choose one of those guys. I don't love playing both, but I think it makes a lot of sense, especially when you're MMEing. But MPJ is the guy I'm going to make a priority in this spot. Was mostly a sim model play. Sim model liked him a good bit, I believe. And then Nikola Jokic, just like Giannis and Luka, if I can get there, I get there. If he doesn't show up enough for me, that's just the way the slate goes. So I'm fine with that. But I think Murray and Porter is really where I want to go heavy. So all in all, we got through this large 11 gamer. I think we're both pretty much on the same page with a good bit. But how are you just kind of thinking about the slate in general when you just kind of map it out?
Yeah, like I said, it's definitely looking like a balanced night for me. Uh, there's only one interesting spot that I'll be looking out for as far as injury news, and that's the Celtics. If all those bigs are out, where they're going to go at center.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one situation I'm keeping an eye out for. But yeah, overall, I'm not going to force in these expensive studs, I don't think. So I'll let Wemby lead the way and kind of build around him.
Yeah, right there with you. And then Phil said, when you do your research on a player, what do you look for? I'll go first, and then you can go, Brandon. I would say for me, I always start off looking at the sim model. I look for outliers in regards to those percentages, and then I'll start looking at ownership, pricing, matchups, game environments, such as just high game totals, looking for low owned leverage plays there. And that's pretty much just like the key factors I look at. And then I also just look around the industry, see what other people are doing, see what I like, see what I don't like, and just get a good grip on how different I'm getting on that slate. That's typically what my process looks like. But what about you, Brandon?
Yeah, pretty much the same. Ownership is big, price is big, matchup is big, and even injury news is big. So we'll
Yep.
take New York, for instance, where we're more willing to play guys like Josh Harden, Quentin Grimes. I'm pretty sure we'd be less willing to play them if Randall is was in. So that's a perfect example of how somebody being out kind of dictates certain plays. So those are the main factors I look for.
See, And Dixon, appreciate it. If you all could appreciate and smash the likes every now and again, I'll get on for good narrative. But we'll see you all on the pre-lock show. Again, if you're interested in that, link in the description. That will be at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. I put the link in the Discord. It's also on our website. That is only for the VIP members. If you want to be a VIP member, the link is also in the description for that. And then feel free to use promo code BDUB, BDUBB for a 10% discount there. Outside of that, peace out. We'll see you all at 5:30 or tomorrow. Have a good one. Good luck, y'all.